Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Inside the Legends. The date is January 2nd, 2026, and today we're going to be talking about my 2026 Senate election prediction. This is actually my first time making an election prediction, an official election prediction, so bear with me here. So yeah, I'm just going to get straight into it. This is my Senate election prediction for 2026. And yeah, so to start off, each party has their individual safe states. These are states that are going to be won by the respective parties by 15 or more points. For example, for the Democrats, you can states like Oregon, which may have slightly dipped under that 15-point margin recently, but are going to stay above that 15-point margin. Same with Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Delaware. And one more, Minnesota. You might say Minnesota, that's not a 15-point state. Democrats are not going to win that state by 15. They are. In 2024, where Democrats only won Minnesota by 4 points, look at the Senate election. They won it by 16, and that's because Royce White was the Republican nominee, and he is running again. He is extremely unpopular, and he's facing to be the Republican nominee for Minnesota Senate yet again. If he lost by 16 in 2024, he's going to be losing by 20 in 2026. So yeah, that's why Minnesota is a safe state. Now, you could make the argument for putting New Jersey as a safe state, but personally, I don't think it's going to be a safe state. I don't think it's going to cross that 15-point margin. I think it'll be close to that. I think it'll be above a 10-point margin. We saw, let's go to New Jersey. We saw Mikey Sherrill win by nearly 15 when she was expected to win by low single digits. So maybe, what's his name? Cory Booker can pull out an upset and win by over 15 points. Maybe, I don't know. But personally, I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, also one more. I completely forgot about Colorado. I think Colorado is going to be safe for the Democratic Party. Yes, in recent times, it hasn't been safe per se. It was D plus 11 in 2024. In 2020, it was D plus 14. When was the last Senate election? It was Colorado election. I mean, it was 2022. But see here, it was pretty much 15 points. I think it's going to go above that 15-point margin in 2026. With the national environment heavily favoring Democrats, Colorado should be a safe state. Okay, now that brings Democrats up to 41. Which you might say, okay, that's a pretty good position. There's a lot of states left. Yeah, Republicans have their fair share of safe states as well. States like Idaho, arguably Montana. You can make an argument for that Montana will dip below 15 points. Personally, I don't think it's going to happen. Jon Tester most likely isn't running. Montana should stay a safe state for the Republican Party. Same with Wyoming, South Dakota, not Nebraska. Kansas is one I'm iffy about. I think it could dip below that 15-point margin, but I'm going to leave it as a safe state for now. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and arguably South Carolina finish the bunch for the safe state for the Republican Party. Once again, you can make an argument for Kansas and South Carolina that they are not going to be safe. In 2024, okay, neither of them actually had a Senate election, but in 2022, they both did. It's not Rick Scott, it's Florida. Scott in South Carolina won by a large margin, 26. Same thing in Kansas. But look on the presidential in 2024. South Carolina was R plus 18. Kansas was R plus 16. Personally, I don't know how these races are going to go. I think there's a chance they can dip below 15 points in South Carolina and Kansas, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to leave them as safe because they are safe for the Republican Party. There's just a chance they might not be won by that safe margin. Okay, and that brings us to the likely states. These are states that are going to be won by the respective parties pretty safely. There's not really too much of a chance for them to flip to the other party, maybe in an absolute landslide. But these are states that are going to be won by 5 to 15 points for the respective parties. We can start with the Democratic Party. In my opinion, States like New Hampshire will go to the likely category. Virginia, definitely likely category. And New Mexico. And New Jersey, of course. I think New Jersey is going to be above 10 points, but not quite 15, which is why I think it's going to be likely. Same thing goes for Virginia. We saw Virginia, once again, in 2025, in the 2025 elections. Democrats overperformed by so much. Jay Jones, the highly scandal-plagued candidate who was expected to lose by over 5 points, ended up winning by a larger margin than Kamala Harris won. That is how big of a swing to the left we were seeing in 2025. And should that shift carry into 2026, states like Virginia, states like New Jersey, maybe even New Hampshire and New Mexico could join the bunch in being safe. But currently, I do not believe they're going to be won by over 15 points. I think they'll be won by all these. I think it'll be won by more than 10 points, with the exception of possibly New Hampshire. So yeah. That brings us to Republicans in their likely states. Now, in my opinion, I actually don't think they have too many of them. They have Florida, Iowa, and debatably Alaska. Now, when I say debatably Alaska, I think Iowa and Florida are going to be pretty solid for the Republican Party. There's been talk out of Iowa that Democrats could narrow it up with Rob Sand, but at the end of the day, it's Iowa. Democrats do not have a spectacular candidate. Republicans are not fielding an awful candidate like they would have with Joni Ernst. If she had not retired. Well, she's still in the Senate, but she's retiring ahead of 2026. I think it's going to be, like I said, for the Republican Party, 5 to 15 points. I expect it to be right above that 5-point margin, maybe 5 or 6 points for the Republicans. Florida will be over a 10-point margin for the Republicans. It's a safe state for the Republicans, but not by a safe margin, as I like to say. In Alaska, it completely and utterly depends on Mary Peltola. The Democrat from Alaska, she's a popular Democrat. If she enters this Alaska Senate race, there is a chance that she wins it. There is a chance. Not a high chance, but there is I would say, 75% chance that she could win this. If she runs. But currently, she has not announced a run. She's not talked really at all about a run. So as of right now, Alaska is a likely state for the Republicans. If she does not run, it's a likely state for the Republicans. They're going to win it by over 10 points, just not by that 15-point margin. Similar goes for Florida. Now, you might be wondering, why am I not including Nebraska or Texas or Ohio or North Carolina? We'll get to those soon, which means we're actually going to get to them right now. The next category we have are the lean states. These are states that are going to be won by their respective parties, but by 1 to 5 points. And I think we're going to start this off with a hot take: Nebraska. Everyone I see says that Nebraska is going to be a likely margin for Republicans. But I don't think so. In 2024, in the Senate, while Donald Trump was winning Alaska as a whole by 21 points, Dan Osborne, the same candidate who's running in Alaska right now, only won by 7 points. By 7 points. In an election where Donald Trump and Republicans were winning the state by over 20 points. And Dan Osborne is running again. Yes, against a better candidate, because Deb Fischer is a very weak candidate. In the national environment, 2026 is going to be with the candidate of Dan Osborne. I think he's going to get this. I think he's going to improve on his 2024 margin by more than 2 points, which is why I think it's going to be lean for the Republicans. And that brings us to Texas. I think Texas is also going to be lean for Republicans. Similar scenario to Nebraska. Everybody says it's going to be over a 5-point margin for the Republicans. I do not believe so. And this is if and only if James Tallarico wins the Democratic nomination and Ken Paxton wins the Republican nomination. That is the only scenario that Texas is under 5 points. Simply put. That's that. Simply put. Okay, and that brings us to the last lean state for the Republican Party. And I believe that's going to be Iowa, not Iowa, Ohio. Democrats are saying that there's a chance that they could narrow up Ohio to less than a point, if not win Ohio. While I do think that is a possibility, I do not think it's likely. I think as of right now, Ohio is slated to be a Republican plus about 2, maybe 3 points. In 2024, it was R plus 4 points with an extremely weak Republican candidate. Sherman Brown, yes, is running again in Ohio in a bluer environment. I just don't see him outperforming his 2024 margin by very much, even in the national environment that 2026 is shaping up to be. And that brings us to the tilt states. Actually, no, the lean states for the Democratic Party. I think these are going to consist of Georgia, the swing states of Georgia, North Carolina. I believe the Democrats are going to flip North Carolina, and they're going to hold on to Georgia. John Ossoff is a popular Democrat in Georgia. Against a very lackluster Republican candidate in Georgia, he should win by he should be confident in winning by 2, 3, 4, if not 5 points in the state of Georgia, which with the national environment that 2026 is going to be. In North Carolina, with Roy Cooper, once again against a very lackluster Republican candidate, he should have no problem in winning this. Roy Cooper has been in statewide North Carolina politics since the 90s, I believe, and he has never, ever, ever lost an election. He has not lost an election. This is a statewide Democrat in the red state of North Carolina, and he's never lost. I do not think it's going to end in 2026. Which brings us to the tilt states. And I believe that the rest of these 2 states, Michigan and Maine, are going to go to the Democratic Party by a very, very small margin. You can make an argument for Michigan being a lean, if not, a lean state for the Democratic Party. I don't believe so. The candidates on the Democratic side consist of Haley Stevens, a moderate corporate Democrat, not enthusiastic. I do think she would win if she wins the nomination, but it's not going to be a great race for the Democratic Party. I do think they'll pull it out, whether it's Haley Stevens, Abdul El Sayed, or Mallory McMorrow, the other 2 Democrat candidates, primary candidates for this election. They're running against Mike Rogers. He is the Republican who lost in 2024. He did lose. I'm not arguing that. He lost in 2024 while Donald Trump was winning the state of Michigan. He is a relatively strong Republican. He is. He just is. And the Democrats are relatively not, which is why I think it's going to be a very small margin for the Democrats, but I do think they'll pull it out. And in Maine, I really don't have too much info to go on this, but I do believe Democrats will finally unseat Susan Collins. She's been in Maine. She's been the senator from Maine for I think 6 terms, if not more. And I think it's finally her time to go. Recent polls have showed her with, I believe it was a 14% approval rating. Republicans interstate hater, Democrats interstate hater. I think this is her last year. Once she's out, Maine is going to become a safe state for the Democratic Party in the Senate once again. So yeah, that's my election prediction for 2026 for the Senate. I'm going to make one of these at the beginning of every single month until the actual elections are. So yeah, hope you stay tuned. If you like this video, subscribe and like the video. Comment what you think the Senate is going to be. I believe Republicans are going to hold control, but Democrats are going to flip 2 seats, Maine and North Carolina. And yeah, I hope you have a great day.